In a previous video, we began work on our constitution.html file by marking up some of the early text, and then we wrapped each of the 7 articles of the Constitution in article tags. One thing we did not do in that video was to check our work and make sure that we don't have any validation problems. So I will select the file and copy it, and then come to the markup validation service, paste it in, and check our work. When I scroll down, I can see that we have some warnings. And each of these warnings relate to one of the articles. And so like with line 15, which is where article 1 starts, it says that it's lacking a heading. And that's the same way it is with all of the other articles. We don't have a heading in our articles yet. So to do that, we'll simply come to each of our articles, and we will wrap these article names in H2 tags. And I'm going to do that to the titles of each of the other 6 articles. Now, when I get Article 7's title wrapped in H2 tags, I'm going to select the file, copy it, come back into the validator here, and I'm just going to do Control A to select everything that's in that window. And then I'm just going to paste right over on top of it with Control V to paste in the code I just worked on. And I'm going to tell it to check this file now. All right. So we've gotten rid of all of our warnings and there's no error showing. Remember that getting a green check mark here on the validation doesn't necessarily mean there are no errors in the document, but at least we know that the code that we've written so far is valid. So I'm going to go back to the top. We're going to come down now because after we've marked each of the articles with article tags and then given H2 tags to the titles of all of the articles, we need to wrap each of the sections in section tags. So I'll just wrap that in section tag. Let's go ahead and do the second one while we're here. But before I go any further and find out that I may have something else to do, I'm going to save this and then select all of it and copy it. Come back into our validation window. Control A to select everything in there. Control V to paste right over on top of what was in there. And now check. Oh, now we got warnings again. Well, notice what the warnings are. We just got through marking up section 1 and 2 of Article 1 of the Constitution with section tags. And now it's telling me that my sections are lacking headings. Okay, and so this is one of the lessons that we need to learn. When we create sections, just as when we created articles, our sections need to have headers. So with the section 1 here, I'm going to give it H3. Control S to save. Now let's check and see if they want anything else. Control A, copy, and then check our file again. And now we're back down to where we have good marks all the way up and down. So there's nothing else that the structural plan that we have in place here is going to require. So what we can do at this point is just go down through each of the sections, wrap the sections in section tags, and then come back in and mark up the title of each of the sections with an H3 tag. Now, when you get to the end of Article 4, then you might want to just stop for a moment and make sure that you didn't overlook one of your sections. And there's a way to count how many you've done. I'll just highlight this area here, highlight the section including the before and after tags, and hit Control F to find. And up here in the find box, it shows you what you searched for. And over here, it'll tell you that you have 21. And that would be correct because the first 4 articles have a total of 21 sections. Now, when you come down to Article 5, and then 6, and then 7, notice that they do not have sections. Article 5 simply has 1 paragraph, and Article 6 has 3 paragraphs, and Article 7 just has 1 paragraph, and it's very short. So we have right now all of our sections marked up. So let's do this. Control S to save, Control C to copy, come back over into our validation window, Control A, then Control V to paste our new content in there, and then check our work. It shows us that we're still lacking all of our section headings, but let's see, are there any other messages at this time? And there are not. So we'll come back up here, and we will go back up to the top of our page in Visual Studio Code. And so we've marked up here on line 19, I've wrapped section 1 in H3 tags and section 2 in H3 tags. And now what we need to do is simply go back down through here and mark up the section names to each of the sections that we've already coded. Again, when we get to the end of Article 4, then just as we had 21 opening section tags, we should have 21 opening H3 tags. So I'll highlight that opening H3 tag, Control F, and we can see up here at the top that there are in fact 21. And again, we don't need to do any of that work in Articles 5, 6, or 7 because there are no sections. I'm going to save my work. I'm going to select everything, copy, come back over and check the validation. And as you can see, there are no errors now. So we'll go back up to the top of the document, come down, and the only thing that we have left to do is to mark up all of our paragraphs with P tags. And I need to show you a better way to do this than just one at a time. So I'm going to scroll up here just so I can see all of the paragraphs that are located in section 2. And what I'm going to do is use a sort of an advanced way of using Emmet. I'm going to select all of these paragraphs at once. Now, if you wanted to, you could do the markup on each of these paragraphs by putting the opening and closing tags on them yourselves and do that one paragraph at a time. But I'm telling you, that's going to take you a long time. So Control-Shift-A to open Emmet. And what I'm going to do is simply say, put in a P tag, and to do this everywhere that there is a paragraph. Now, so what you see is just simply the P, lowercase p, and then the multiplier symbol in Emmet. And that means to put a P tag around everything that is surrounded. So I'm going to hit enter. So now I have P tags wrapped around all of these paragraphs. And I'm just going to do that again in section 3. I'll add all the paragraphs that I can see in my window. Control-Shift-A, P, asterisk, enter. They're all done. And I'm just going to do that all the way through the rest of the document. When I get to section 8, I want to pause and just mention that in all of section 8, the only paragraph that we have would be this opening paragraph right here, right after section 8. We're going to highlight that, Control-Shift-A, and just put a paragraph around it. We're going to come back later to everything else in section 8. It's going to be a big list. So that's all of the paragraphs down through Article 7. And then down here, just before we get to the list of the men who signed the Constitution, then we're going to go ahead and wrap up these last 2 paragraphs down here with P tags. Should be two paragraphs that exist below Article 7. Now let's see if we highlight one of the opening P tags and do the Control F. Notice the notation up here, it says 69 of 70. So 70 is the total number of P tags that are in the Constitution down to this point. At this point, we want to check our work for validation. So we'll save it and select it, copy it, paste it into the check window, click on check, and we find now that we have no errors in validation so far. All right, so we've learned how to mark up sections, and we've learned that every article must have a heading element and every section must have a heading element. And we've learned how to mark individual paragraphs with P tags. And we've also learned how to mark multiple paragraphs at one time as a way of making us more efficient by using the skills that we're learning in Emmet.